can be weaponized to control and oppress, and it can also be a doorway to receive Allah's reassurance and security. How do we soothe our fear? Do we look for security in the proximity to power, or do we look for security in the proximity to the most powerful? In this episode of Quran Conversations, Ustada Samia Mubarak and I delve into the iconic scene of the story of Musa alayhi salam, where the Prophet of God faces off against the most skilled magicians in the land. This is Quran Conversations, the podcast for anyone who wishes to unlock the meaning and healing power of the Quran. I'm your host, Dalia Mogahed. I'm an author, researcher, and a student of the Quran. And I'll be in conversation with one of my dearest friends, Ustada Samia Mubarak, a memorizer of the Quran as well as someone who teaches it. If you're enjoying this podcast, please review it on your podcasting platform. It helps more than you know. Quran Conversations is sponsored by Fawakih, an online learning platform for Quranic Arabic, which I myself use. Start your journey in unlocking the language of the Quran. Go to fawakih.org. We hope this podcast encourages your own reflective journey with the Quran. Make sure to stay until the end to hear this week's reflection prompt. For more spiritual insights, follow me on Instagram at Dalia Mogahed. Without further ado, let's dive into the episode. This week covers ayahs 66 to 69 in Surah Taha.
So the way they are telling Musa alayhi salam, like either you go first or we go first, who wants to go first, it's very also belittling and degrading. And, sometimes we speak to kids in this way, but obviously we don't do it to belittle them, but, they're little kids and we're, giving them options. But when you speak to a grown adult like this, right, who's trying to wake you up and, is a prophet of God, right? And someone that you're about to face off with, to say such words in this moment is derogatory, right? Belittling, right. Like, you're much less than us. Like, don't even think you can get to our level kind of thing.
Right. And so we're going to give you the choice because you're obviously the weaker party out of our grace and generosity, right?
Yeah.
And he responds, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, قَالَ بَلْ أَلْقُوا. And before I go any further, he says, you throw. So he says, بَلْ أَلْقُوا. قَالَ بَلْ أَلْقُوا. He said, no, you can throw first. And it's just, it's the difference in the responses, right? So their question is very sing-songy, is very long. Do you want us to do it or do you want to go? What do you want? And it's this taunt. And he's just, with all his dignity, 3 words, no ghunna, no, nothing. It's just all idhar, قَالَ بَلْ أَلْقُوا. You can go ahead. Full stop. And then it goes on to say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. فإذا حبالهم وعصيهم يخيل إليه من سحرهم أنها تسعى. And lo and behold, because of their sorcery, their ropes and staffs seem to him to be moving. So the illusions of their magic, or the illusions of their tricks, they also worked. I mean, they worked on everyone, including Musa alayhi salam, where they're bewitching people's eyes. And Sheikh Sha'rawi emphasizes that the difference between what happened with Musa alayhi salam and these magicians is that in the case of Musa, his staff actually turned into a snake. That's why he was scared of it, because it was actually a snake, because it was a miracle. Whereas in their case, their so-called magic is an illusion, is that nothing actually changed. It was a staff and it remained a staff, but they tricked people's eyes. so that they didn't have the truth. They had an illusion. And that really is the difference between propaganda and truth, where you're reporting on the facts and you're spinning a tale. They might look very similar to your eyes, but one is real and one is an illusion.
And it reminds me of the dua of like أرنا الحق حقا, like we're constantly asking to see the reality of the truth, because there's so many illusions out there. And the fact that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us here that Musa alayhi salam, as a prophet of God who's fortified, can even for a moment, be fearful that he's falling for that illusion, right? So there's also a lot of, validation here to recognize that people are going to be wanting to mess with your mind and eyes, right? And to stay like woke through that. I also love the way you described Musa alayhi salam owning his power back, because they try to strip him of honor and dignity in the way they were belittling him. And then in 2 words, takes it right back. Like, I'm not gonna play on with you, right? Like, I'm not willing to go there with you. SubhanAllah, so brilliant here.
Yeah, his response absolutely does take back his power, take back his dignity. And that tells us a really important fact of communication is less is more. That power and dignity is usually associated with fewer words, not more words. So say what you have to say and then close your mouth. Keep your peace. Don't over explain. Just tell your truth and then end it. But I think that what you said about this sense of validation is really, really important. That the magic or the illusions even worked on him. And that tells us 2 things. First, that they were really powerful illusions, that they really did appear to everyone around them like that the staffs were, or the sticks were turning into snakes. And that sometimes we are also bewitched. We are also taken on a ride by the propaganda around us. When we watch, a movie or a news report that's completely biased or one-sided, and we can start to actually, just because it works so well, I mean, the persuasion is effective, we can fall for it. And that doesn't make us bad people. It just makes us human, but we have to keep coming back to the clarity of the Quran. And the dua you mentioned is so important, right? It's the one where we're praying for clarity. We're praying for Allah to show us right as right and wrong as wrong, because it is so easy to get those mixed up.
I think it's such a rahmah that Allah is already, helping us with the propaganda that's bound to happen, right? Because anyone who's speaking truth to power, right, there's going to be propaganda. Like, and you see in the Quran, even Surah Al-Shu'ara, many scholars say that the Shu'ara, the quote unquote poets, that's actually the propaganda of each prophet. And you see it, you see in each prophet story. I remember when I attended Fawakih. It was a month-long program, the Arabic, they teach Arabic, Quranic Arabic. I know they sponsor this
yes,
podcast.
we're big fans of Fawakih on this podcast.
Yeah, so I took Fawakih in 2012, I believe, and Dr. Zainab Alwani was teaching Surah Al-Shu'ara, and she had us, see the Shu'ara as these poets, as propaganda and she was telling us about the media, how the media can be the Shu'ara of today. And Allah clearly tells us in the end of that surah, like, they're powerful and they're going to have a following, and we have to be careful.
Absolutely. And the media is the magicians of today, and every tyrant needs magicians. They need ways to justify their tyranny and their oppression. I was just wanted to say one thing about this idea of the poets being the propagandists. I had attended a class where in Turkey, where the teacher, who was actually a Syrian professor, he was saying, why does the Quran say the Prophet ﷺ is not a poet? Like, what's so bad about being a poet? Like, we understand when it's like he's not a fortune teller, he's not a magician, but what's wrong with being a poet? And he said, because poets at the time were the propagandists. They were writing poetry to basically propagate the idea that their tribe was superior to others. They were the tool of propaganda. They were the tool of exaggeration and lies and spin. They were the PR machine. And what the Quran is saying, he's not spinning anything. He is a truth teller. He is telling you the truth. And it's interesting, in Surah Ash-Shu'ara, of course, is an expanded version of the conversation between Musa and Fir'aun. And you learn a lot from that surah on the tactics and strategies and talking points of tyrants and what they try to do. And we were actually considering doing a deep dive into Surah Ash-Shu'ara as almost like a break or like a tangent onto the podcast, where we take a break, we talk about Surah Ash-Shu'ara and come back to Surah Taha, just because it's like it takes one scene and elaborates more on it. So still considering that idea.
Inshallah.
تفضلي أستاذة, the next ayah.
فأوجس في نفسه خيفة موسى.
Musa alayhi salam was inwardly alarmed. So this word awjasa is he sensed. It means he went into himself, read his heart, and he felt that there was this sense of fear. But the way that the ayah is structured is very interesting. فَأَوْجَسَ فِي نَفْسِهِ خِيفَةً مُوسَى. It implies, it signals, because so he sensed inside his heart fear, Musa, and Musa's at the end. It's because what they saw was Musa, the upright, strong prophet, and his heart and his fear was veiled from them. They couldn't tell he was afraid. His fear was hidden inside his heart, but he felt it. He's a human being. And we can imagine that after that show of illusion that he would feel afraid and had to be reassured by Allah. But that his fear, in the tafsir, is said to have been hidden from his audience.
SubhanAllah, we have this like perfect divine book of words and stories, and it's so amazing. Like, again, like when you look at the emotions embedded in the Quran and how much of it is knowing yourself and being okay addressing those emotions, because like if you would say the whole point of Musa's story, right, and one can argue, right, and say the whole point is how he saved Bani Israel and the outcome, and how he pushed through, but then the reality is Allah's like, no, I want you to know and see this moment, right, of Musa alayhi salam being in touch with himself, feeling all his feelings and going inward and being okay with that, right? Like, and you see so much of that in the Quran. It's almost like when we're not familiar with ourselves, it almost feels like an interruption, right? It's almost like, wait, hold on. Like you see that in when Allah talks about the heart of his mother, right? Because the story is going and then all of a sudden it rewinds, like, wait, you're at her heart and she feels a void in it. That's in Surah Al-Qasas. You see that also in Prophet Yusuf's story with Yaqub alayhi salam. All of a sudden he's feeling big emotions the moment we know that his other son is also captured. So if we're not familiar with our own self, which I feel like unfortunately many we can be taught that as Islam, unfortunately, right? This like, don't feel, just believe, as if belief comes with this detachment of feeling. But the Quran will over and over again tell you the exact opposite, to the point
Bury
that,
your feelings,
yeah,
suppress your feelings. That's
exactly.
what faith looks like. That's what sabr looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
And
But
it
to the
couldn't
point that
be.
Allah forces us to stay with Musa alayhi salam's emotion, like here, you know.
It is amazing because outwardly he didn't look afraid. So the story doesn't have to report his feelings. It could just tell us what happened, right? He saw them, they had this elaborate magic show, and then he threw his stick and we went on, and the story gets told that way. But Allah doesn't add any extra words. It was important for us to know that he was afraid. This detail was added in, was included, rather. It wasn't added in, it was included in this story enshrined in the Quran. So reflecting on that, what are we supposed to learn from the fact that we are told that this prophet of God, with all his faith, with all the signs of Allah that he saw, he talked to Allah directly. He was afraid and he still pushed through, right? And one thing that it makes me think of is do it scared. Just do it anyway. Do it scared. If you're scared, do it scared. Because subhanAllah, as you were talking, Samia, I was thinking, he eventually does something so brave and so like mind-boggling, which is he walks, he has the army of Pharaoh behind him and the Red Sea in front of him, and he has this unshakable faith that Allah is with him and will guide him. And then he does this brave thing of walking through the Red Sea, and it was parted for him, but how does he know it's not going to, come crashing down on them? But it's almost like this moment was more difficult, where he had to walk through the Red Sea of his heart and of his fear. He had to wait for that to part in this moment where he's up against these people before he could actually lead his people to freedom by walking into an ocean that was parted for him.
That's powerful, and I think that's a recipe that we have embedded in the Quran, like in Prophet Musa's story and several stories of prophets. It's you can't do the big work if you can't see yourself and know yourself and be, comfortably facing the uncomfortable within you. There's so much here, I feel, subhanAllah, and obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most wise, and this is the Quran al-Hakim, right? It's a book of wisdom. That's all these are gems for us, that gift us with like wisdom in our own life. Like sometimes we think of, well, why is this not going well? And it's like we haven't even sat with ourselves. We don't even know what we're feeling. Like we've gotten so comfortable, like deflecting our own discomfort and our own feelings and our own everything happening inside of us. And you see it even sometimes in the way we raise kids, like just pray, just pray, just pray, just do, just do, just do. And who teaches you to feel, right? And to love and to know what I'm feeling and to walk through that. Like, and I feel like without the internal, we miss so much of Islam, right? Like we're doing it wrong when we don't start within, because then it's all a facade, right? And no wonder we break easily, because it was never internal to begin with.
No, absolutely. I can't remember if it's my turn to read or yours.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. قلنا لا تخف إنك أنت الأعلى. But we said, do not be afraid. You have the upper hand. So Allah is reassuring Musa in this ayah. And it's very interesting. We go back to this word, al-ala. It's like this competing narrative in the story of what does that mean? Al-ala, the one who is higher in rank, or the one who has the upper hand. وَقَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْيَوْمَ مَنِ اسْتَعْلَى, we're told, where the magicians were told the successful ones are the ones who seek to have the upper hand. And here Allah is reassuring Musa, you are the one with the upper hand, despite the material evidence to the contrary, despite the fact that they outnumber you, despite the fact that they have proximity to power and you don't, in a material sense, you are still the one with the upper hand.
You know, just going from 67 to 68, the switch is really interesting to me, because if you look at 67 just, on its own, Musa alayhi salam is feeling fear within himself. But then the next ayah is Allah reassuring him. But to me, I always look at this verse and I'm like, but hold on, like, where's the conversation between Musa and Allah? Because it's not a dua. It's not like, oh Allah, I feel fear.
Right.
And then Allah reassures him. But it's just Musa being in touch with himself, and then Allah reassuring him through him being in touch with himself. And to me, it like echoes of, when you truly know yourself, you will know Allah. Like, because He's your creator. And when we work on knowing ourselves authentically, it will unquestionably lead us to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so just him arriving at his own feeling brought him to divine reassurance. Like, I love that switch here. SubhanAllah. It's like, because there in 67, Allah is not mentioned actually.
That's
but
right.
Allah doesn't have to be mentioned for Him to speak with you. You have to do that. Again, back to the internal work. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَذَكَّرَ. Like, as we said, like, the one who's really going to have the upper hand is the one who is comfortable knowing themselves and working on themselves. And when you do that, you find Allah through that. And here you see the link so clearly. SubhanAllah. It's from 67 to 68.
No, absolutely. And, awjasa, this word is to feel something that is hidden inside, like a dreading, which happens to someone who is afraid and hides his fear deep inside himself. This is from Quran Hive, giving an insight into this word. So it's a hidden, sometimes it's even hidden from yourself. And as you said, it's about being in touch with your own feelings, understand what your body and what your heart is experiencing. And it reminded me actually of the introduction of the surah, where in ayah 8, it's وَإِن تَجْهَرْ بِالْقَوْلِ فَإِنَّهُ يَعْلَمُ السِّرَّ وَأَخْفَى. And if you speak your truth, if you speak your voice out loud, then indeed Allah knows your secret and what is even more hidden. A secret is something you know about, but you're not telling anyone. What is even more hidden is something that might even be hidden from yourself. And so Allah is reassuring Musa before he even has to ask for it. Before there's no, as you said, there's no dua. But it's Musa alayhi salam connecting with his own feelings. And in response to that, Allah reassures him. Because it's this beautiful illustration of knowing our secrets and what is even more hidden and responding.
Yeah. And just to be constantly connected, like connected to myself, and through that connected to Allah. And it's like almost you're just always connected to Allah. Like, you're always that seeker. You're always looking for Allah in everything, in all the signs. And there are people who live that way. And you see Musa alayhi salam, who was fortified through that, to just see Allah in everything. So even when he's feeling his emotion, there's Allah there too. He's feeling. And he's in touch with himself, and through that, he's able to feel that ma'iyah, that Allah is with me through it. because I feel like we rob ourselves of ma'iyah. We rob ourselves of Allah being with us when we're not with ourselves.
Now, that's such an interesting insight that when we're disconnected from our own feelings, how are we going to experience Allah's presence? When Allah connects, we experience His presence through our hearts. If our hearts are this locked box that we never access, that we've locked away and broken off from, then we're not going to experience Allah's presence, because it is the heart that is the vessel for us to connect to Him.
Yeah, it reminds me of أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا, which I feel like you just said. Like Allah says, do they not reflect on the Quran and ponder upon it, or is it that their hearts are in chains? And it shows that even the Quran, especially the Quran, when you come to it, it's not about like logical stories that all make sense and like, wow, look who had power, look who got this. It's, you're gonna miss the whole point if your heart isn't in it.
If your heart is locked, you're not going to understand the Quran. So you have to access your heart. And accessing your heart means experiencing your emotions. There's no way around that. And including very uncomfortable emotions like fear, which is why we're told about it here. It's not a weakness. It's part of walking through the human experience.
Yeah, and knowing Allah, knowing who He is the comfort when we face our own discomfort, right? Because the reality is we're gonna see our own ugly, but if we're attached to His divine, beautiful characteristics, which the beginning of the surah talked about, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى, to Allah belong the most beautiful of names. When we're attached to that beauty, then there's no ugly in us that can rob us from seeing the beauty in Him.
SubhanAllah, it made me think of the idea that fear is a doorway to experiencing the security of Allah. Because if you don't feel any fear, if you don't experience fear, you aren't going to get to experience the reassurance of Allah, right? It's like if you never feel cold, you're not going to know what it feels like for someone to warm you. Or if you've never made a mistake, are you going to ever experience being forgiven? It's this idea that our human frailties and fallibilities are doorways to experiencing Asma Allah al-Husna. And this is like this beautiful illustration of that, whereby Him feeling fear and experiencing that fear, He was able to receive reassurance from Allah.
100%. SubhanAllah.
Would you like to read 69?
وَأَلْقِ مَا فِي يَمِينِكَ تَلْقَفْ مَا صَنَعُوا إِنَّمَا صَنَعُوا كَيْدُ سَاحِرٍ وَلَا يُفْلِحُ السَّاحِرُ حَيْثُ أَتَى.
Throw down what is in your right hand. It will swallow up what they have produced. They have only produced the tricks of a sorcerer, and a sorcerer will not prosper wherever he goes.
You know what I'm seeing here? We talked about this in the beginning of the surah, of the reassurance and the guided action through the reassurance. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reassuring him through action. And I think, again, that's a beautiful part of here, because Islam empowers us. Knowing Allah empowers us. So Allah doesn't just say, it's okay, things are going to be fine. But it's here's what you can do, right? And I think that's the beautiful part of walking to Allah and facing our fears through Him, is that through that facing a fear and asking Him, He shows us what we can do. And He pulls us to action, even if it's small actions that we can do. But they mean a lot because they're coming from that divine reassurance, right? And it's like, almost to me, like lifting the veil, right? When you're in fear, sometimes it clouds you from taking any action. It's debilitating, right? But the minute that you put Allah in the equation, sometimes it's like that fog is lifted and Allah is able to show you, oh, this is what I can be doing, right? And here, obviously, he's telling Musa alayhi salam exactly, he's walking him through it. وَأَلْقِ مَا فِي يَمِينِكَ, right? Just throw it, right? So it's guided reassurance as well.
It's the action, it's telling him to do the action that follows the reassurance. And I love what you said about it's not reassurance and then idle waiting. It's taking the right action. I was struck by two things as you were talking. One is that the theme of fear and instilling fear and being afraid has come up more than once in just the set of verses that we've been discussing. And yet there's this key difference. One is a tyrant instilling fear so he can control people. And the second is a prophet of God experiencing fear and going to Allah for reassurance. And the difference in that. One is weakening people's ability to see right and wrong. And the second, being the example of Musa alayhi salam, is actually quite the opposite, where he is given the strength and courage to do what he must do. So fear is a human emotion, and it's about how we respond to that fear. Where do we go for security? Is it running to being close to power? Do we find security in proximity to power like the magicians did initially? Or do we find security by reaching for Allah, by opening ourselves to His reassurance? And what really strikes me about this ayah is he says, وَأَلْقِ مَا فِي يَمِينِكَ, throw what is in your right hand. تَلْقَفْ مَا صَنَعُوا, it will immediately swallow what they manufacture. And it makes me think of like the battles that are raging on college campuses or in the media or on social media or wherever, where these young people or whoever is speaking the truth against this machine of well-resourced propaganda. And it feels so overwhelming. But what this ayah is saying is what you have in your right hand, like this idea of what is in your right hand, right? Fi yaminika. It's like the staff in your right hand almost like represents, it's the truth. It's the ayah of Allah. It's the shara. It's what is right. Don't worry about it not being, as amplified as the lies. Just throw it. Just speak it. Just try. And Allah will take that message and spread it throughout the world. It's not on you to do any more than to just throw what is in your right hand. And Allah is reassuring us, right, that the sorcerer, the illusionist will never truly succeed. So just keep speaking the truth, even if it feels like you're speaking into a void. Keep throwing what is in your right hand.
I like how it says, subhanallah, like حيث أتى, like wherever they come from. Like they can come.
It's like, yes, حيث أتى, like it's this general principle that it's not just this one incident, right? ولا يفلح السحر حيث أتى. They will, the illusionist will not succeed wherever, anywhere he goes.
I also, the way you explained the word sana'u, right, and you translated it to manufacture, it further illustrates to us how who's real and who's a robot, right?
Yeah.
Like what's real and what's the illusion? Because even in that, verb that Allah uses, that they're making this stuff up. Like it's made up.
It's made up.
And what you have is real.
And they know it's made up. The magicians know that they're full of it. Like they're not under any illusion themselves that this is really happening. They know it's a trick. They know it's a lie.
And that's why I feel like it goes back to, again, when you know yourself and you're sure of yourself and you're not playing games on your own self, you're real.
Yeah.
Right. And that gives you power despite what you see on the outer, right? Despite the numbers you see, despite the perfection of rows you see in the alignment they have, quote unquote, right? Because you're real, right? And you're in touch and there's no faking it. And everything they do is fake. Like even
Yeah.
their unity is fake, right? So subhanallah, it's again to me just showing me like the robotic illusions versus the real connection, right? That Musa has. Like you can't compare this to that, you know?
Absolutely. When you were talking about the robotic, like alignment, it reminded me of these two videos that I saw that were so eerily similar that it was like scary. So it was one on Pierce Morgan. This woman, she was called the grandmother of the settler movement. And she looked like she was possessed by Satan. I swear to God. She was like Pierce Morgan, who, you can have any opinion of him, but he was even upset at her. He was like, can you condemn the killing of children in Gaza? Can you condemn that? Can you condemn the killing of 16,000 children in Gaza? And she's like, well, the Palestinians need to stop brainwashing their children to hate Jews. They need to be more careful about what they educate their children about. They need to, and she just kept repeating this talking point that Palestinian children are brainwashed to hate Jews, so therefore it's okay to kill them. Okay, that's the logic. Then another video I saw, like about 2 weeks later, was Mehdi Hassan interviewing again somebody. I think he was like an Iranian Israeli. Same question, almost same answer. Well, it's you know Palestinian children are brainwashed to hate Jews, and I'm just like asking him about the same thing about how Palestinian children were being. He said, "Can you condemn that there's snipers actually taking out Palestinian children when they're trying to get food?" And the guy was like, "Palestinian children are brainwashed to hate Jews." I mean, it's this robotic, completely nonsensical response, but it's like everyone's reading from the same script. It's so manufactured. I'm like, are you hearing yourself? Is this actually your best argument? And it's this idea of these rows and rows and rows and rows of magicians, right? With the same parlor trick. And people aren't falling for it anymore. It doesn't make any sense. They're seeing through it.
It's that same illusion of united through this robotic statement that's nothing to do with the reality.
Right. Completely divorced the reality.
Yeah.
Or logic or humanity or compassion or just like basic human decency that you would justify a sniper targeting a child trying to get food. Like that there would be a justification you would even attempt of any kind.
Yeah.
Is mind-blowing.
Yeah. And that's why the best combat to that is to know the self and then know Allah through the self, right? Who created it. And it's like you can't lie to that person who's attached to the divine. Like they're those people who are fortified through Allah will see right through it, like you said, right? And that's why I think the internal work is so important, because the internal work forces you to see things as they are.
Forces you to see things as they are and then act on that sight. Even if it feels overwhelming and that you're speaking into a void, just throw what is in your right hand. Thank you so much, Ustada. We'll end there today.
Jazakallah khair.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation, and if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Share this podcast with others who may be interested in the meaning of the Quran. Also, we love hearing from our listeners. Tell us your reflections at Quran.conversations, our Instagram page, or comment on our YouTube channel. We read every single one. Finally, we hope this podcast encourages your own reflective journey with the Quran. This week's reflection prompt is: has fear ever been a window to experiencing nearness to Allah for you? Until next time, keep reflecting on the Quran. Assalamu alaikum.